This is literally the dictionary definition of reheating your own nachos, but like, I'm having so much fun. Hey guys, dearyoongi here, and welcome back to my channel. I am so excited because in today's video, we are going to be taking a trip down old dearyoongi memory lane. We are going to be looking at strengths and weaknesses of different K-pop groups. Now, this is a blast from the past because I have actually done this exact video before, but like 4 years ago now. I fell down a rabbit hole recently of looking back through some of my old content. Is it embarrassing to admit I watch back my own videos? I don't know, maybe, but here we are. I was watching back this old strengths and weaknesses video and realized, oh my god, because so much time has passed, there's a lot of points I made back then which I no longer agree with. So I thought it would be really interesting to look at the groups we discussed last time, what I feel their strengths and weaknesses are now versus what they were back then, and if they have changed. The reason we are doing this is because 1, I wanted to sort of prove to K-pop fans that hey, it is totally okay to change your opinion on things. There's nothing to be ashamed of, we're all growing all the time. But also 2, I would love to do a more recent up-to-date version of this video with other groups. So please let me know in the comments if there's any other groups that spring to mind which you'd like me to mention in a future part. Okay, sorry for the long introduction. Without further ado, let's get started. The first artist we are going to revisit is ATEEZ. Last time I said their strength was that they were able to establish a Western market so early and had such an influence on Western K-pop audiences that they were selling out tours in the US within a year of their debut. While of course this is definitely still true, we're not going to rewrite the past, but this particular strength could perhaps be adapted to where they currently are in their careers now because they've been around for like over 7 years. I would say the strength I would like to highlight for ATEEZ now is still within a similar realm to last time, except now it's more about how they have been able to continue to appeal to a Western market, even more so than they did at debut, despite the rising competition around then. Since ATEEZ's debut back in 2018, a lot more boy groups have debuted, and it would be very easy to get lost in such a saturated crowd. But not ATEEZ. There has always been something about them that has appealed to overseas fans, and their audience has continued to grow around them as a result of this, which is super nice to see. Now moving on to the weakness. In the previous iteration of this video, for ATEEZ's weakness, I pointed towards their predictability, because at the time, ATEEZ seemed to have 2 very specific sounds or styles of releases, which they alternated between. The super lit upbeat songs versus the more summery light songs. Looking back now, I'm not sure if I would really put predictability down as their weakness, because it clearly worked in their favor, with assisting them in establishing themselves and growing an audience. I do have a different thing I have spotted now which you could really argue is a weakness, but I'm a little bit afraid to say it because I don't want ATEEZ to come for me in the comments. But I feel ATEEZ's weakness now is that each member is very much stuck in a box. Now I will explain. I know in K-pop it is very normal for each member of a group to have a position which is theirs to fulfill. So you have your lead rapper or main vocalist, main dancer, etc. But in a lot of groups, these roles can and will be interchangeable, and the members are able to showcase their other strengths. However, in ATEEZ's case, I'm not sure if it's just me who gets this vibe, but I do rarely get to see the members explore out of their expectational box they have been put in. For example, I adore Jungho's voice. He's probably one of my favorite 4th gen male vocalists, but I would love to see him do other things with his voice that don't just consist of him being the high note king. Mingi is known for his fierce raps and deep voice, but there are a lot of deep voiced rappers in K-pop who, when given the chance to, have added something really cool and interesting to a vocal part thanks to the cadence of their voice. It would be really nice to see all the members getting utilized to their full potential, and I'm not too certain that is currently happening. Okay, moving on. The next group we're going to look at is TWICE. Back in the original video, I said that TWICE's biggest strength was their ability to have that artist-to-listener rapport. By this, I meant that as time had come for them to start developing as artists as their careers were going on, they were able to start experimenting more with their sound and concepts. And because of the strong rapport they had built with their audience, they were able to do this and still receive the same level of support. Now, to be honest, I wouldn't necessarily say this is fully the case anymore. While of course they still have those die-hard fans who supported them in the maturing of their concept to the fullest, I do also remember seeing them get a fair amount of backlash for comebacks like Scientist, Set Me Free, and Moonlight Sunrise. I will be a little bit fair to Past Me because she didn't see that coming, but I don't think fans were as lenient as I had said they were. I do have a different strength for TWICE now, which I think has become more important for them in the later years and would be crucial for any K-pop group. They clearly seem to to love and enjoy what they're doing still. It would be so natural for any group to feel burnt out after being in an industry like that of K-pop for over 10 years, and that is of course not including the time they spent training pre-debut as well. Twice's career has been incredibly busy, releasing album after album, tour after tour, but when you see them perform on stage, you would think they're a new group only a couple of years into their contracts. And they're just happy to be up there performing, which is so nice to see. They have this air of professionalism about them that definitely comes with being seasoned pros, where the members could have been having the worst day ever, but you'd never really notice because they make up for it with a great performance and looking effortlessly fun every time. Now it's time for that weakness, she says, with a big sigh and fear. So last time I explained how I felt as though Twice's weakness was having a rap line, because I never felt as though their discography was one which required a random rap verse thrown into each title track, kind of disrupting its flow. And I hate to say it, but I still agree with that statement and want to stick by this weakness. Now, before anybody jumps to any conclusions, this is not to say that I don't think Dahyun or Chaeyoung are talented or shouldn't be in the group, because both of them have other roles and talents that I think contribute better to the group and the makeup of Twice than their rapping does. It is not their fault that Twice's music has never really necessarily needed a rap verse, but they are usually thrown in there and these lines are given to them, or maybe another member like Momo. I think Twice's music would be just as nice and would work just as well if they took out the rap parts that usually break up the song in a negative way and continued with more vocal style verses. Not every K-pop group needs a rap line, and I think it's time to accept that Twice is evidence of this. The next group we are going to discuss from that original video is none other than BTS. I wasn't kidding when I said we're going back to my roots in this one. In the past video, I said that BTS's strength is their production and the fact they're so heavily involved with their music. This is because this means there's always that sort of authenticity behind what they do. This connection to what they create is what will help deeper resonate with fans. It probably goes without saying, but I still feel this is a strength of theirs. I promise I'm not just a biased Yoongi stan. I really hope it continues to be so as we move into this new era of BTS making their long-awaited and highly anticipated comeback. BTS putting the artist into being a K-pop artist is what made fans fall in love with the group in the first place, because they were able to offer something unique to a market and industry that is constantly getting accused of being mass-produced and inauthentic, and it was something that K-pop fans hadn't seen for a few years, or at least not since the days of groups like HOT who released music challenging society. BTS's music having a point of view, especially in those earlier days when they were still growing, gave fans something to connect to, and regardless of what comebacks and concepts they were going to explore in the future, or what appeals to the widest audience, I really hope this connection and involvement with their sound is not something they lose. Now for BTS's weakness. Last time I highlighted how I felt as though their music was becoming a bit too safe. So when I created this video the first time, I would say it was around the time when they were starting to really pop off in the West. So some of their music started to sound like generic Western style pop music. COVID could have also had a part to play here, because I felt as though perhaps less companies were wanting to take risks during that time of uncertainty in general. I think the weakness I want to highlight for BTS now is not on a too dissimilar note, but this time I want to say that BTS's weakness now is more so that due to their success, they are probably going to be stuck between a rock and a hard place for the rest of their careers now. And as amazing as it is that BTS have gone on to have such a crazy successful career together, of course we're all insanely proud of everything they've achieved, but this level of success and stardom does come at quite a few costs. The one I want to talk about in particular is the struggle they will now face artistically with trying to please everyone. There'll be older fans who have certain expectations for the group and their music predominantly based on nostalgia or perhaps just music preferences, which is okay, but then you'll have newer fans who might only know or resonate more with BTS's more recent music, which is different and also still okay, to each their own. However, for the group, this will create a difficulty for them moving forward now conceptually, because they will want to release something that everybody loves, sure, but that just might not be possible when you have different kinds of audiences around the world now who want different things. Is it possible to strike a balance between the two? Yes, I think so, but it will likely also come down to, at the end of the day, the direction the label wants them to take also, and that might be beyond their control. We've looked at the biggest third-gen boy group, so now let's talk about the biggest third-gen girl group, BLACKPINK. So in my first video years ago about this topic, I said I felt as though BLACKPINK's biggest strength was the accessibility of their music. This is because there was something about BLACKPINK's music that seemed to strike that perfect balance of appealing to the domestic audience in Korea, but also resonating with a wider global audience. This in turn, of course, attributed to them growing to the scale they did, breaking records, selling out tours, because even non-K-pop fans found themselves being able to enjoy a BLACKPINK song. This is definitely something we could still consider a strength of theirs, because I believe the same still remains true. However, I would like to highlight another strength of BLACKPINK instead now, and that is that every member of the group stands out enough to become a brand within their own right. I feel like what Blackpink is doing now is the dream come true for any label. Well, any label who still has the members signed to them for solo activities, sorry YG. But what YG Entertainment managed to create with Blackpink is a girl group where each and every single member has become high in demand as individuals as well as part of their group. And that is very difficult to achieve. Every member is wanted by major fashion houses globally. Some are acting, some are selling out concerts, or getting nominated for very prestigious awards. You could argue this is just down to their success and people wanting to make money, but each member has that ability to have a successful solo career within their own right. And that in turn is a strength of Blackpink, simply because it consists of members literally packed full of potential and marketability, each within their own right. For Blackpink's weakness, last time I said it was in reference to their music. In the previous video, I mentioned how Blackpink had an issue with consistently following the exact same formula for every single title track release, and this was becoming super repetitive for listeners. Today I do want to discuss a different weakness for Blackpink, but it is still unfortunately still related to their music, and it's pretty simple. It's the lack thereof when it comes to the music, even after all these years. And then the music we do get, let's face it, it's been lackluster. You can clearly see that there seems to be such a disregard or lack of care towards actually putting together a solid discography for Blackpink. You would clearly understand comebacks feeling rushed or maybe not the most interesting if they were every few months and there was a lot of them, but to have one release a year, if even that, and then for it to be disappointing to fans is simply not okay. I debated whether or not I should include this point as their weakness or perhaps explore something else, because this does feel like beating a dead horse at this point. Like, how many times have we heard people complain about Blackpink's lacking discography? But then I saw that they dropped the track list for their new mini album Deadline and thought, yeah, no, that's enough. I appreciate that it's a mini album, but at this stage in their careers, another 5-track only album is just simply not going to cut it. 4 tracks when you discount Jump, which was already released, and I think 3 when you consider one of those other tracks I believe was already leaked a while back. So how much new music are we really getting? I'm sorry it's going to sound harsh, because I did just applaud each member for being their own brand, so this is more me aiming this at YG Entertainment and their team. But if you want to continue Blackpink as a group, it is simply just unacceptable at this point that they're going to keep giving fans pretty much nothing, especially when they're still expecting fans to purchase things such as new albums and concert tickets. I think the entire world tour, with only just like one extra song since their last tour, was really the final straw for me, and this new mini album is not helping. Why they didn't just release the Deadline album before the Deadline tour, I will never know. Okay, the next group for us to discuss is an important one because it inspired me to recreate this video, that is Tomorrow by Together, or TXT. In the original video, I said that TXT's strength is their potential. This is cute because when I made that video, it was still in the earlier years of their career, so they had really only just stopped perhaps being referred to as rookies. And while they had, of course, already seen a lot of success, I spoke about how I felt as though the group definitely had a very bright future thanks to the talents and abilities of each member. It's nice to look back now at this years down the line knowing that this was true and they have gone on to do great things. But because that strength isn't exactly the most relevant to where they are in their careers now, I do have a different one. I think a big strength of TXT is their ability to pull off any concept, because I strongly think they could. During their time together so far, we have seen them dabble with a few different styles or areas, and at no point did I feel as though what they were doing looked out of place or didn't suit them. That again ironically does take us back to the original strength I mentioned about the members' talents, because their ability to pull off any image or make any concept work is a testament to them, their adaptability and their presence both in the studio and then following that through on stage. Now moving on to the weakness for TXT, and I'm cringing when I say this, but hear me out. So last time I said that TXT's weakness was that they remind me of someone, meaning BTS. And please don't yell at me, because this is something during the time I said because it felt as though HYBE were doing their utmost to create a very similar sort of success story as they had with BTS, and were copying and pasting it onto TXT. And I mean, we can't exactly blame them for that, because who doesn't want to create a successful group? Every label wants to do that. But at the time, and hopefully people will be able to see where I'm coming from if you were there also, people felt as though some of the moves HYBE or Big Hit were making with TXT just felt like they wanted them to follow in BTS's footsteps and were desperately trying to create this little brother group sort of thing. I think I gave examples of Can You See Me sounding like a BTS song, Blue Hour being released right after the success of Dynamite with a similar sort of concept, that sort of thing. Out of every point I made in that original video, I think this is the one that divided viewers the most, because some people agreed with me and saw what I saw, whereas others really did not. I myself now have also jumped the fence to the other side and don't see this the way I originally did. See guys, it's totally okay to change your mind on things with further understanding or evidence. It does not make you a bad fan. Let's all grow together. As the years have gone on, TXT have really come into their own, and I don't see so much them following the exact same path BTS did. They have wrote their own. We do still have to give them a weakness, however, even if it's not this one, because that's the whole point of this video. I think TXT's weakness now at this point in their careers is, where do we go from here? Their label needs to work harder and better at giving each member their own identity. We constantly see K-pop fans complaining that Yeonjun stands out or sticks out too much in TXT, or perhaps more so than his other members, but I don't think this is necessarily the label trying to push him more than the others unfairly. I think it's more likely they have just been able to establish a clearer image for him initially, so they have decided to push that first and foremost. But now they need to remember that there are also 4 other members who need and deserve the same amount of light or chance to find their own spotlight. In a similar way to what we mentioned for BLACKPINK, each one of their members have their own clear and distinct brand now, and this has done wonders for them in finding work alongside of just group activities. And I think this is really what needs to be the next step for TXT in order for them to solidify themselves as individuals as well as members of the group. This doesn't mean that I'm trying to imply they should start preparing for a time when they're not members of TXT anymore, of course not, but it is unlikely that they will all only want to just do boy band music forever. There's nothing wrong with wanting to let the members explore more of their own individual activities, aside from just a few maybe YouTube videos highlighting the members. We have seen how well they can achieve things together, and when they are cohesive, they're great, but I think the opportunities for each member could and should be limitless too. The next group for us to discuss is I-DLE. In the original video, for their strength, I mentioned their involvement and production of their own music, which gave them an advantage over other groups around them in the industry. And I would say this is still a major strength of theirs. Unfortunately, as I'm sure many of us know, we don't see as much of a strong female presence in the production side of the K-pop industry compared to that of male idols involved in the production of their group's music. So I think this in turn puts I-DLE in a very unique position, especially amongst 4th gen groups. Are they technically 4th gen? I think so, right? I think in the original video, I stated that Soyeon has played part in every single one of their releases so far, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe the same still remains true even now, which is crazy for a group like almost 8 years into their career. With their music all having Soyeon's stamp on it, this gives them a more genuine edge because there's an authenticity to them and their sound. But also aside from just her production abilities, I think what Soyeon has and adds to the group is a point of view which is more special and unique, and something that really works in the group's favor. I-DLE's weakness, last time I said that I found it difficult to put my finger on exactly what their concept is, because this was during a time where they seemed to be doing a lot of experimentation, but nothing had really stuck. I don't see this so much being a problem nowadays, because that experimentation did work in their favor, and they had some of their biggest releases since I made that last video, and have continued to grow so much and seen so much success. So as for right now, I really don't know how to say this nicely, but I feel as though I-DLE's current weakness is that they do seem to be lacking somewhat in presence. Since we last spoke about I-DLE in the previous iteration of this video in July 2021, they had one of their members, Soojin, leave the group in August 2021. I know it has been so long since she left the group, and I don't want to sound like one of those fans who can't let things go and are still wishing for her return. It's not happening, we know that. But I think a lot of people do sometimes fail to recognize and realize that when Soojin left I-DLE, the group didn't just lose a dancer, they lost part of their presence. Dancers contribute so much more to a K-pop group than fans may realize sometimes. They're not just there to look good or perform a catchy choreography. Part of the role of a group's dance line is to have that stage presence that can add value to any routine from the way they look on stage. Think of some of the greatest dancers across other groups. They don't just dance well, they also have an energy and just general air around them that makes you want to stand to attention. I feel like Soyeon sure also contributes that to the group with her raps and how she's clearly a natural leader on stage, but that isn't always going to be enough to carry a full group. And this is something I think the group does need some help with. Now that isn't to say I don't think the other members of I-DLE contribute to the group with their vocals in their own way, because of course they do, but I-DLE is still missing that showmanship for me that comes from a dancer who knows how to perform and comes across like a natural on stage and commands the attention of a camera, even when it's not their turn to sing. Okay, last but not least, one more group I want us to revisit from my original strengths and weaknesses video is Stray Kids. Last time I said that Stray Kids' strength is that when they're on top of their game, they are unstoppable. I think this will make more sense when in context with the weakness I mentioned, so we'll get onto that. But the reason I said this was because they were at an interesting stage in their careers where I felt like some of their music really hit. I do feel as though this has settled down and they discovered themselves and their vision has become much clearer as the years have gone on. So I think a new strength is needed for them to be highlighted. And I don't mean to sound like a broken record because I've used this same strength for multiple other groups throughout this video, but hey, a strength's a strength, and I can't not say this for Stray Kids because they have it in the bag. Their strength is their production. Much like I said for I-DLE, Stray Kids are in a very unique position amongst other groups of their generation, and this is thanks to the contributions of the producing members. Stray Kids have 3 Ratcha, which consists of members Bangchan, Changbin, and Han. These 3 members all make their fair share of contributions to Stray Kids already as it is, whether this be through singing or rapping or even both. But as producers, they give Stray Kids' music that extra special spice, that touch that you know makes all the difference. To be given creative freedom that they seem to have been given at a company like JYP Entertainment, who have a history of not giving creative freedom, means they must have been doing something right, because every release receives at least a decent, if not positive, reception. If I'm not mistaken, Bangchan is already chomping at the bit of other producers in K-pop who have been around much longer on the Korean Music Copyright Association or COMSAT list, with the amounts of songs he now has credits on, which is something to be proud of for sure. Okay, now for their weakness. Last time I mentioned that there was a somewhat inconsistency to their music, which was the flip side of the strength I mentioned. In the earlier years, when their music was good, it was really good, but there were also other releases which I felt just didn't live up to the other releases they had put out when you put them side by side. The difference was night and day, where I felt like some of their music really hit. Other releases lacked direction and just didn't really do anything for me or the group's discography, in my opinion. But again, I don't really think we have that problem anymore. Now for their weakness, and I know this isn't necessarily fair on them because it isn't really their fault or something they have control over, but I do feel the need to mention it because it's how I feel. I think Stray Kids' weakness at the moment is that I really see or feel a burnout coming imminently. Again, this is like deja vu for those of us who stan JYP artists, because it's certainly not the first time this will have happened to a group, but the amount of output expected from Stray Kids in recent years is insane. In 2025 alone, Stray Kids held a 3-day fan meeting. They released a single album mixtape, Dominate. They released their Japanese EP, Hollow, another Korean studio album, Karma. They had their Dominate World Tour and encore concerts, released another mixtape, Do It, an exhibition in Japan which went across 5 cities, and I'll definitely be missing things, but you get the point. Plus, this isn't including any activities the members did individually, jetting around the world, attending fashion shows, etc. And this workload will not be letting up in 2026, no way. They just recently performed at Les Galas des Pièces Jaunes, oh my god, I've really tried, I'm sorry, in Paris for the second time this January, and I don't know if I'm the only one who noticed, but I got this small vibe from them of, wow, they kind of look exhausted. And I honestly don't blame them. As they edge closer and closer to their mandatory military enlistment requirements, the output expected from them will be more than ever. More albums, more tours, you name it, whatever will generate as much money as possible. I know this is the nature of the beast in K-pop, and the expectations placed on idols are major, regardless of what point they are in their careers. But while the group continues to generate such high profit, the expectations placed on them will be even higher, and that does worry me. I know they're professionals and it's nothing short of what they're used to, but at the same time, it is just not healthy or natural for your body and mind to be put under so much stress. Even aside from the potential negative impact on the members' health, we've already seen fans on social media have a fair bit to say about the quality of the group's music, claiming that the frequent comebacks are hindering the quality of the output. I don't think I'm the only one who has noticed when members appear tired on stage either, but I'm approaching this from an angle of please let them rest. We know ATEEZ, however, will be taking this as their opportunity to call the members lazy or accuse their performances of being lackluster. Just totally unfair when it can't be helped if they're getting dragged here, there and everywhere. And I just hope for their sakes that this workload placed upon them from the label doesn't come back to bite JYP in a negative sort of way. I hope they're getting the space and opportunity to rest where possible, because the last thing you would want for them is to face any injury or illness long term from being overworked. Okay guys, and that was it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching if you got this far. I had so much fun making it, but if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. Do you agree with the points I made, or would you identify other strengths and weaknesses in these groups? Oh, and please suggest groups in the comments you'd like me to look at in a strengths and weaknesses video in future, because I really want to do this type of video again, but with different groups we haven't spoken about before. If you're new here, please hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to be the first to hear whenever I upload, and I will see you next time. Bye guys!